Some people knock on your door to deliver news. Others knock to change your entire life. It was 8:42 a.m. when Robert Mathers stepped out of his sleek black car and looked up at the crumbling house. The sky was cloudy, dull like the Monday he never asked for. His assistant had already sent him the files: condemned structure, unpaid loans, no legal protection left. It should have been a clean job. A final signature. Another tick on the long list of evictions this month. He adjusted the silver cufflink on his wrist, the one engraved with his initials, a gift from a board member who once called him the scalpel of real estate. Precise. Detached. Always cutting what needed to go. The gravel crunched beneath his polished shoes. The paint on the front door was peeling, the hinges barely holding. He raised his hand to knock, firm and ready. But then the door creaked open on its own. Inside, the scent hit first. Damp wood. Cold air. A faint trace of lavender, as if someone had tried to mask the truth with something gentle. The hallway was dim, light filtering through torn curtains. "Hello," he called out, voice steady, professional. No answer. And then, the soft sound of humming. He stepped further in, past the broken shoe rack and the crooked frame on the wall. The house felt like a memory left behind, worn but trying to hold on. And then he saw her. A little girl, no older than 7, standing on a stool by the sink. She was washing dishes, not quickly, but carefully, like each plate deserved kindness. Her hands were small, sleeves rolled up, humming something slow and sad. She didn't look up. Robert froze. There was no fear in her eyes, just a calmness that didn't belong on such a young face. Her hair was tied in a messy braid, her sweater too thin for winter. A small stuffed rabbit sat on the counter, one ear missing, stitched back in pink thread. He cleared his throat. She looked up finally. "You're early," she said softly, not startled. "I'm here about the property," he said, the words caught in his throat. "Is your mother home?" "She's sick," the girl replied. "Resting." Her voice didn't shake. It wasn't apologetic. It was still. Robert's gaze moved past her. A heater blinked red. The wallpaper was peeling in strips. A patch of roof near the back door was covered with a tarp and bricks. "Who takes care of you?" he asked before he could stop himself. The girl glanced at the rabbit, then back at him. "Me," she said. It was not said in pride. Not in sorrow. Just truth. He looked at the eviction papers in his hand. Suddenly, they felt heavier than they ever had. "Can I see your mother?" he asked, more gently this time. The girl shook her head. "She sleeps when she hurts." Robert stood there, unsure what to do with his hands, his words, or the walls that were beginning to close in, not from the house, but from something inside him. He had seen homes like this. Dozens. Maybe more. He had delivered bad news to worse places. But this one was different. The child turned back to her dishes. The humming started again, slow, haunting, like a song passed down in whispers. He looked around again. A crayon drawing hung from the fridge, a sun, a stick figure with gray hair, and a house that didn't look broken. "You drew this?" he asked. The girl nodded. "That's our future house. Mom says it's okay to dream even if you're poor." He didn't know what to say. For a moment, silence filled the kitchen. And in that silence, Robert felt something unfamiliar. Not guilt. Not shame. Something softer. Something like memory. He looked down at the eviction notice again. Then back at the girl, still humming. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like the one in control. Not here. Not now. Robert sat on the edge of the wooden chair. It wobbled beneath his weight, but he didn't move. Across from him, the girl finished drying her last dish. Then, with quiet purpose, she wiped the sink dry like she had done it every day of her life. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lena." "Nice to meet you, Lena." She nodded once. Then walked to a shelf near the window and opened a tin box. Inside were folded notes, a few coins, and some faded pictures. She pulled one out and placed it on the table in front of him. "That's my mom and me. Before she got sick." Robert looked down. The photo was old but full of light. A younger woman holding Lena in her lap, both smiling with their eyes closed, caught mid-laugh. They were sitting under a tree. It wasn't a grand picture. But it was peaceful. "She used to work at a bakery," Lena said. "Her hands always smelled like sugar." Robert nodded slowly. "Now, she sleeps a lot. I cook oatmeal and bring her water. We're okay." Okay. That word stung more than he expected. He hadn't heard it said with such grace in years, not since. He stood up, walked slowly into the living room. It was small. Sparse. A stack of library books rested near the couch, carefully arranged. A knitted blanket covered a frail shape. That must be her mother. He didn't look too long. Instead, his eyes drifted toward a dusty picture frame near the television. And that's when it hit him. A child's drawing, stick figures again. A man in a suit. A girl with a pink bow. And words written in shaky cursive. Sometimes, someone kind shows up when it matters most. It wasn't addressed to anyone. But something about it felt personal. He turned back toward Lena. "Did you draw this too?" She shrugged. "Sometimes, I dream things first. Then I draw them. Mama says I have a heart that sees." Robert's throat tightened. Years ago, he had a daughter. Her name was Clara. She was almost Lena's age when she passed. A sudden illness. One day, she had been jumping on the couch, pretending the floor was lava. The next, she was gone. His world shattered. He buried himself in work. More deals. Bigger buildings. He built walls, not of concrete, but of silence. No birthdays. No soft words. Just results. His wife left months later. Said she couldn't feel him anymore. And now, here he was standing in a stranger's home, staring at a picture drawn by a girl with the same stillness in her eyes that Clara once had. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Reminder, eviction deadline, submit signature before 12 p.m. He stared at the screen. Then hit the side button. Silence returned. Lena walked over and handed him a cup of lukewarm tea. Mismatched mug. No sugar. But it felt like more than a drink. It felt like trust. Robert took a sip. "Thank you." "You're welcome." She sat cross-legged on the floor now, flipping through a book with bent corners. No cartoons. No games. Just pages filled with tiny print and pencil marks. "Why do you read that?" he asked. "Helps me understand things." "What kind of things?" "Why people leave. Why people stay." Robert didn't answer. The clock ticked softly behind them. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. Somewhere down the street, a truck passed by. Normal sounds. But this moment wasn't normal. It was delicate. He looked around again. Everything broken still held purpose. The cracked cup. The patched blanket. Even the crooked bookshelf stood proudly. He had walked in expecting to take something away. Instead, something in him was being returned. Not all at once, but piece by piece. "You know," he said, "when I was young, my dad left too." Lena looked up. Robert surprised himself. He hadn't told anyone that in over a decade. He just disappeared. No warning. No goodbye. "I thought if I worked hard enough, I could fix that hole. Build something big enough to cover it." Lena stared at him quietly. Then said, "Did it work?" He chuckled bitterly. "No. Not really." She nodded, like she already knew. Then went back to her book. "And Robert?" He leaned back in the chair that still wobbled, and let the silence sit between them like an old friend who had waited a long time to be heard. That evening, Robert sat alone in his high-rise office. The skyline glimmered, but he didn't notice. A hot coffee sat untouched. His tie was loosened. The eviction papers, now stained from the rain earlier, sat at the edge of his desk unsigned. He tapped his pen, again and again, then stopped. Lena's face came back to him. Not pleading. Not broken. Just steady. He reached for his phone. "Dr. Patel," he said, when the line connected. "Can you do a house call?" The doctor hesitated. "For who?" Robert didn't answer right away. "I don't know her full name. Just, she's in trouble. She needs help." The next morning, he drove back to the little house. Same peeling paint. Same quiet street. But his heart was louder now. He knocked. Lena opened the door, still in the same sweater. Eyes wide. "I brought someone," he said. "A friend who's a doctor." Her lips parted. "Is Mama okay?" "That's why he's here. To check." Dr. Patel stepped inside with a kind nod. "I'll be gentle." Lena led them in. The doctor entered the back room. Robert stayed behind, hands buried deep in his coat pockets. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, Dr. Patel returned. "She's weak," he said quietly. "Severe anemia. Possibly pneumonia. She needs proper care." Lena listened from the kitchen doorway, hugging her stuffed rabbit. "I'll arrange everything," Robert said. But the doctor shook his head. "She won't leave. Not without trust." Robert looked at Lena. She stared back, calm, guarded. He took a breath. "What do I need to do?" Later that day, he returned, this time with groceries. Fresh fruit. Warm soup. Medicine. A space heater. Lena stood on the porch, arms crossed. "Why are you doing this?" He hesitated. "Because I want to help." Her eyes narrowed. People only help when they want something. He didn't argue. "I've made mistakes," he admitted. "But this isn't one of them." Still, she didn't move. "I'm not here to take your home," he added. "But you were," she whispered. The words cut. "Yes," he said softly. "I was." Inside, her mother stirred. For the first time, she spoke, a whisper wrapped in effort. "Who is that man?" Lena knelt beside her. "The one who didn't leave." Robert stayed by the door, uncertain. Her mother opened her eyes slowly. "Did you bring the light back?" He stepped forward, voice gentle. Not yet. But I'm trying. She gave the faintest smile, then closed her eyes again. The next morning, Robert met with his board. The head of legal tapped the eviction notice. We're past deadline. Finalize it or face penalties. Robert didn't flinch. I want to delay it. That's not protocol. I'm rewriting protocol. A silence fell. Are you seriously putting your name on the line for one property? Robert stood. No. For one family. Back at the house, Lena watched from the window as he carried in books and blankets. I thought you were rich, she said. I am. Then why are you doing poor people things? He laughed. Because money never taught me what kindness did. She blinked. Then, for the first time, smiled. It was small. But real. But it didn't last. That evening, a black car pulled up outside. A man in a gray suit stepped out, sharp eyes, cold expression. Robert, he called, loud enough for Lena to hear. You're making a mistake. We warned you. Lena shrank behind the door. Robert stood tall. I'm not walking away. You're risking your company. I've already lost more important things. The man scoffed. This won't end well. Then left. Inside, Lena looked up at him. Will they take me away? He knelt down. Not if I can help it. But what if they do? He paused. Then gave the only honest answer he had. Then I'll find you. That night, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Lena pulled a blanket over her mother. Then crept into the living room where Robert had fallen asleep on the couch. She placed her drawing beside him. It showed 3 figures now. The girl. Her mother. And a man with silver hair standing beside them, holding a light. She didn't say a word. Just went back to bed. Robert stirred, saw the paper. And felt something inside shift. Not with force. But like a door opening, that he had forgotten was ever closed. The following morning, Lena was gone. The front door was unlocked, her stuffed rabbit missing from the shelf. Robert called her name, first quietly, then louder. No answer. He ran to the bedroom. Her mother stirred, confused and pale. She's not here? He shook his head. I thought she was with you. Fear crept into his chest. Not the kind that whispers, the kind that roars. He searched the block, knocked on neighbors' doors. No one had seen her. The grocery store? The library? The bus stop? Nothing. He circled the streets until dusk. Rain started. Cold. Sharp. Still, no sign of her. Finally, he spotted her. At the edge of town, sitting alone on a bench near a church. Hair wet. Shoes muddy. Arms wrapped around her knees. The stuffed rabbit was beside her, soaked. Robert stopped the car and ran to her. Lena. She didn't look up. He knelt, soaked to the bone. You scared me, he said. She still didn't speak. Why did you leave? Finally, she whispered, I didn't want to ruin your life. His breath caught. What? You're important. People listen to you. I don't want to be the reason they stop. Her words were quiet. But they landed hard. He sat beside her, rain falling between them. Lena, he said gently, you are the reason I started listening again. She turned toward him. Eyes full. lips trembling. You mean that? He nodded. I'd done many things for power, for money. But they never gave me peace. You did. The streetlight flickered above them. Lena reached into her coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I was saving this, she said. He unfolded it slowly. A drawing. Different from the others. It showed a house, lit from within. Windows glowing. A man and a girl standing inside. A banner above them read, "We stayed." Robert looked up. You drew this before I came? She nodded. Weeks ago. Why? Because I hoped. That single word cracked something open in him. Hope. Something he'd buried for years. He drove her home. Slowly. Carefully. Inside, he made her tea. Warmed her hands. Dried the rabbit. She sat by the heater, quiet, watching him. I want to fix this house, he said. Properly. She looked unsure. I won't take anything. I won't change what matters. But the roof, the heater, the floors, they need help. She hesitated. Will it cost us something? He knelt beside her. Only if you don't let me do it. Her lips curved, not into a smile, but something close. A beginning. The next few days moved like a soft wind. Workers arrived. Quiet, kind people Robert trusted. They painted. Sealed leaks. Replaced windows. But the mural Lena had drawn on the back wall? They left it untouched. She made this, Robert told them. It stays. They added a frame around it. Not flashy. Just enough to say, this matters. One afternoon, Lena's mother woke up clearer. She saw the fresh sheets, the warm air, the light streaming in. Robert stood near the door. She reached out a hand. Thin. Gentle. Thank you. He stepped forward. Took it. Held it like something fragile. You stayed, she said. I couldn't leave, he replied. But not everyone was pleased. His legal team filed objections. Old clients called him foolish. A lawsuit threatened to freeze his assets. Still, Robert didn't flinch. He showed up to court clean-shaven, well-dressed, with Lena beside him. The judge asked why he had interfered. He answered with truth. Because she reminded me what I lost. And who I used to be. Then he stepped back. Lena stepped forward. She held up her drawing, the one with the banner. We stayed, she said softly. The courtroom was silent. No law, no regulation could argue with that. The judge made a note. Looked at Robert. Are you prepared to become her guardian? Robert looked at Lena. She nodded once. I am, he said. With all his heart. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Flashes burst. Questions flew. Robert held Lena's hand tightly. We're going home, he whispered. And they walked past the cameras, past the noise, into something far quieter. Something real. Winter slowly loosened its grip. Snow melted from rooftops. The air carried hints of early spring. Inside the once failing home, warmth finally stayed. The patched walls now held color. Soft greens. Light blues. A fresh floor underfoot. The ceiling no longer dripped. And the cold draft had vanished. But the biggest change? The people. Lena ran across the small yard, chasing sunlight with a kite made from old newspapers. Robert watched from the porch, coffee in hand. He smiled, not the practiced kind used in boardrooms, but something softer. Earnest. She turned and waved. Come fly it. He laughed. I haven't flown a kite in 30 years. Then it's time. So he did. It soared, dipped, spun, just like her laughter. He hadn't felt this alive in a long, long time. Inside, her mother sat propped up with pillows. Hair still thin, voice still faint. But the light had returned to her face. Robert brought her soup every afternoon. You don't have to, she'd say. I want to, he'd reply. Sometimes they'd talk. Other times, they'd simply sit. One afternoon, she looked at him and whispered, You look lighter. He nodded. That's because I finally put something down. What was it? He paused. The weight of trying to be someone I wasn't. She smiled. Lena told me you used to be a giant, she said, teasing. I was, he said. But the kind that stumped instead of helped. Not anymore. Soon, he began showing up at city council meetings. Quietly. He'd listen, take notes. One day, he raised his hand. I want to propose a fund, he said. For families at risk of eviction. Emergency care, legal support, school supplies. The room murmured. He stood firm. It won't fix everything. But it's a start. They approved it weeks later. A seed was planted. He named it the Clara Fund. After the daughter he lost and the lesson she left behind. He also started writing again. Not reports. Not contracts. But letters. To his ex-wife. To old friends. To himself. Each one a piece of the wall he was tearing down. At home, Lena painted on the back porch. Big colors. Orange. Yellow. Teal. She asked him to help with a mural. I'm not good at art, he warned. Good, she said. Then you won't try too hard. So they painted a giant tree together. Roots stretching into the ground. Branches touching stars. At the bottom, she added 3 stick figures. This is our story, she said. He didn't reply. Just rested a hand on her shoulder. At school, Lena began thriving. She joined a storytelling club. Wrote essays about her rabbit, about her mom, and about the man who stayed. Her teacher called Robert one afternoon. She speaks of you like you're the reason the sun rose. He blinked. She's the reason it keeps rising. One evening, after Lena had gone to bed, her mother asked him a question. What changed you? He thought for a while. I saw someone survive with nothing, and still choose to give love. She nodded slowly. That's Lena. That's Lena, he echoed. On the night of Lena's 8th birthday, they lit 8 candles on a homemade cake. She made a wish. He asked, What did you wish for? She grinned. That we get to do this again. He paused. I think your wish already came true. The next day, a letter arrived. From a tenant association. A thank you. You didn't just save a home. You reminded us we matter. Robert stared at the letter. It was handwritten. He hadn't received anything like that in years. He folded it carefully. Placed it in his drawer beside Lena's first drawing. The one that said, We stayed. That night, he looked in the mirror. Not at the suit. not at the silver in his hair, but at the man behind the eyes, the one who almost forgot how to feel. And he whispered to himself, "Thank you for turning back." Months passed. Spring gave way to early summer. The little house on the corner, once crumbling, now stood with quiet pride. The garden out front bloomed with marigolds and daisies. A welcome mat, stitched by Lena herself, read, "Still here." Inside, peace had taken root. Lena's mother could walk again, slowly but steadily. Her voice was stronger, her laughter softer. And she had started baking again, not every day, but enough that the home smelled of cinnamon on Sundays. Robert's life had changed too. He sold his penthouse, moved into a modest cottage near Lena's school. Nothing grand, but it had a yard, sunlight in the kitchen, and shelves full of books he never had time to read before. One of those books? A journal. Empty at first, but page by page, it filled with drawings, thoughts, and little lessons Lena taught him without trying. Things like, kindness doesn't ask questions. Silence can be love too. The strongest people don't shout. On a warm Friday evening, the three of them sat on the porch. Lena was reading aloud a short story she wrote for her class. It was about a girl who saved a tree by loving it through a storm. Robert listened, eyes closed. Her voice wrapped around him like a lullaby. When she finished, she asked, "Did you like it?" He opened his eyes and smiled. "I loved every word." Her mother nodded. "It sounded like all three of us." Lena blushed. Maybe it was. Later, as the stars came out, Lena leaned against him. "Do you think we'll always be together?" she whispered. He took a moment, then answered gently, "As long as we keep choosing to stay." She held his hand a little tighter. That night, Robert wrote one last line in his journal. Sometimes, miracles don't arrive with thunder, they arrive when someone stays long enough to be changed. Maybe there's someone in your life who's quietly holding everything together, or someone who just needs one person to stay. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing, not just to hear more stories, but to be reminded that even in a noisy world, quiet love still matters. Until next time, stay kind, stay soft, and stay.